You know what? Wait till
Well,
Wednesday?
I will. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it.
It's on my
I
desk.
made this 5 weeks ago.
My number down and come right over. Oh, shit. If I get to that point, I'll get out my
I'm
calculator and
gonna
I'll
write
add
your
it.
number down, because I'm
I want-
missing a bar. So what is your?
Bar.
Yeah, you know, where you can see what you've
Okay.
done.
We're busy doing computer discussion. For anybody that happens to be watching, we're discussing computer stuff. So we'll get to the Bible in a minute. We're running a little late. We can talk about some of this stuff afterwards. Okay.
What is your number? Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. That we're running late. Our people out of Bellflower are running a little bit late.
Yes.
Their slave driver.
I'm watching, I thought it was 7:30.
Oh no,
We practiced.
no, it wasn't. It's not quite that long.
late.
Not that 12. End of chapter 12. There's one verse left, but we ended with chapter 12 last time.
Yeah, this is too low.
You guys don't. I see, and I like these. You guys, those chairs are too low.
They're too low.
They're too low. Okay. We have Sunday school. I couldn't even get the feed to come on, so I just finally shut it down and said forget it. So anyway, okay. So we are at the end of chapter 12, and just kind of as a going back and reminding people the kind of the history or and it goes in a different direction. It doesn't use the same imagery and stuff that it used the first time. And in this one, we're looking at this great. And it's this woman. There's a woman and a child and a dragon, and now we're starting to get into. I mean, it's starting to get into the unusual symbolism of Revelation, right? The dragon was the Roman Empire. There are people that say the dragon is Satan, and it's, you know, that it's talking about things to come, not things in the past. So, and let's see, just looking to make war on the rest of her children, those who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. So Satan and his dragon took his stand on the sand of the seashore. So almost kind of sounds like Godzilla, you know? Godzilla has come out of the ocean, a beast rising out of the sea. Now, the beast is another, you know, kind of a demonic character, right? We talked that's in Revelation, okay? Heads. And on its horns were 10 diadems, and on its heads were blasphemous names. Okay, so we've got on its horns are 10 and a diadem is a crown, right? Okay, so interesting that on its horns it has crowns, but on its heads it has names, right? Blasphemous names. And this is, remember, these are people for whom names, there's power in names, there's power in words. And so the idea that someone would have, you know, and I don't know whether we're talking tattooed words or names on their heads. We don't know exactly how that is, but they're not, obviously not good names. They're blasphemous names. They're bad names, right? And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Okay, so think body of a leopard, kind of a cat, right? Feet were like a bear's, so huge paws, right? Not cat-like feet, but huge bear-like claws. And its mouth was like a lion's mouth. So think more the head and the mouth of a lion. And this is so you have the dragon and the beast. They're both the dragons on the sea, on the shore, on the sand, and the beast is coming up out of the water, right? And they're both right there together. And the dragon gave it his power and his throne and great authority. So this beast is going to come up out of the water, and the dragon yields his power, his authority. He's in a sense he's going to become sort of a servant of the dragon. He's going to do just like the dragon has done bad things. This beast is going to do bad things, right? Because he's allied himself with the dragon. So now we're going to hear more about the beast. One of its heads seemed to have received a death blow, but its mortal wound, or the plague of its death, had been healed. So it's got one head that's like it's been bashed in or something so bad, but it's healed, and so it's the head looks really, I would think really bad. You know, if something that had. You've heard of that whole thing about somebody beating him with an ugly stick, right? Well, this one beat him. The whole earth followed the beast. So it is the people of the earth are amazed at this beast, and I don't know if it's amazed. People are amazed just at this one head that has received this, but it didn't. That's what amazed it, maybe. And remember, you know, I think most of the time we think of the beast. It's not convincing people that heaven isn't that great a place, right? I mean, you know, you can if you can talk people into thinking it's cracked up to be, you don't really want to go there. You know, that's a way that you would do it. Also, their ancient authorities lacked this sentence, so that sentence may not be original. We don't know that to conquer them. Okay, but so government, the beast, and of the people are going to go against the church. They're going to go against saints. They're going to go against people. And you know, you see this if you look on Facebook. I know not everybody look on Facebook. There's a lot of stuff right now about China and the fact, you know, is that at least that kind of thing is going to be happening, but it would be much broader. I know that we are going to get more to the Antichrist a little bit later as well. And remember, these things kind of cycle back through, so it's not always easy to tell. Captive, into captivity you go. If you kill with the sword you must be killed. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. So in other words, this is with the beast or the dragon. It appears to be someone talking to John, or John talking to the church and the people. But it's basically he's saying, if you get taken captive, right? That if you pick up the sword to defend yourself and you kill, then you're going to be killed. I mean that, and it's a call for endurance and faith of the saints, which in the persecution of the Roman Empire is very much what you saw. I mean, you saw Christians that, you know, if you remember when we were watching about Paul, Luke, you know, and that one, the way that the Christians they just accepted their fate and were martyred. I mean, they were thrown to the lions or whatever it was that was being done to them, and they didn't pick up a sword to defend themselves. And the call was for just an empire has been gone for I don't know how many date the fall of the Roman Empire, but over 1,000 years. But the church is still around. The church hasn't gone anywhere. It's still, other than all around the world, it has done that. And so to some extent, basically, those who live by the sword die by the sword, and that's kind of the way it goes. So that's kind of just a little parenthetical. Oh, hey, by the way, for those of you reading, when they come and get you, just active, and whatever happens. Let's just have endurance and faith, which they did. Then I saw. So now back to John's vision. I saw that rose out of the earth. It had 2 horns, like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound had been healed. There's a lot of emphasis on this mortal wound. This idea that there was something that had happened to them, that they should have died, that they look grotesque or something. But for that, we are supposed to worship them, right? But this is sort of a little, kind of a smaller beast. It's only 2-horned beast, right? But it speaks like the dragon. I don't know what a dragon would speak like. I don't know. Spit fire. I'm not sure. But obviously a lot of authority, right? It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in the sight of all, which is something that's very biblical, right? Think Mount Carmel. Think Elijah. Elijah calls down the wrath of God on the altar, and fire falls from heaven and consumes everything. Well, this beast is able to do that. That at the time, that was pretty impressive. So this would be pretty impressive. And by the signs that it is allowed to perform on behalf of the beast, it deceives the inhabitants of earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. So it not only does it encourages them to worship, but then it encourages them to make a statue, to make an image, or grave an image, right, of this beast that they're going to worship beast. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so the image of the beast could even speak and cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So it kind of reminds maybe of the robots and automatons. What the thing that Disney did, that they've got the whole, what is it, the thing of presidents or something, and they've got all these talking kind of mechanical things. Well, now robots, you could even, if you holograms, all kinds of stuff that we could do. But not only, it brings it to life. It's able to bring this image to life, and then people who won't bow down and worship it, it has the ability to kill them when they won't do that. It's a pretty powerful thing that it's able to do, that this beast is able to do.
Well, that's even more blasphemy.
Yes, absolutely. Creating the image. Yes, very much so. Very much so. But notice in this case, it deceives the inhabitants. That's what it's about. It's about deception, right? It's that it gets them to focus on something that's really not true, not right. And that's its deception. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell who does not have the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. The mark of the beast. So this is where it comes, the mark of the beast. and it's interesting. Because we don't know. I mean, I think we get down here a little bit later. We get what the number is, right? But I'm reading a set of books that's it's not about Revelation, but it uses a lot of the same imagery of it as Revelation, and in it there is God, and then there is a devil, and that is, his name is Telah, and it's Telah is a kind of this bat-looking creature, horrible-looking creature, but Telah requires, and Telah's the one that would sort of be like the if Telah was the big beast, the one that was the little one is called Baal, and that's Baal it becomes the servant of Telah. But these people that worship them, he requires them to have the mark of Telah, and Telah has claws, and so they're clawed on their foreheads. And when the way the claws work, when they do it, when you look at it, when it's because it's from above, and so when you look at it from below, looking on, it's three fingers, and it's the claw marks are 666. They look like 666, but they're actually the claw marks of the beast, which I thought was I mean it's really kind of, as they tell you these things, you're kind of like, kind of spooky kind of stuff. So, but and then and people think, people have talked about chips, microchips, which could be, nowadays you can't have a credit card if it doesn't have your little chippy thingy on it. You can't have that. And if you don't have that little chip, you can't buy things. You can't be in the marketplace, which is what a big part of what that is, so that you cannot buy or sell if you don't have that mark, if you don't have that little chip. It's one of those where we rebel against some of these things and say, oh well, we would never do that, and then they just sort of creep in. The idea of oh well, I would never have. If you read Brave New World, Aldous Huxley's Brave, they have the ability to watch what you're doing in your house. That's something that they can do. Oh well, we would never allow that to happen. Absolutely, it's the hottest thing for Christmas. Yeah, I know. I'm not at my house. I'm not having one of those things. I don't need Alexa. I don't need any of those things. I don't want one of those. I don't need one of those. Don't give me one of those grandma camera things. I don't need any of those. I mean, I'm right here on the camera, and that's the most I ever want to be. But we say we would never do it, but then they figure out a way to market it where it's cool, or it's something that you can't live without, and they get people to do it. And it's these things are not going to happen. You're not going to see the beast looking. It's not going to have two horns growing out of its head and all that. These are going to look like just normal people, and they're going to and when they talk about deceiving, they're going to deceive. That's how it's going to happen. It's not going to be through power or with guns or anything like that. It's going to be through deception, and I think they'll get us to buy it ourselves. They really will. I mean, that's and this whole idea that you have to have, I did not realize. You realize that you actually, by law, have to have an ID on you at all times.
You do.
Watch some of those police shows. I mean, the live ones. People that say I don't have an ID, sometimes they will let them, but they can't actually arrest you for failure to provide an ID. That you have to be able to prove who you are, and if you can't, then there's that used to be something that they wouldn't. I mean, you would never allow that you had to have something on you at all times. And nowadays it's it's a given. And there's going to be a time when they're going to have everybody's fingerprints. I will not do DNA testing. I'm not going to, you've done Ancestry, but you're not going to do, yeah, I've told my kids.
Nope.
How come? I don't want my DNA for the world. You don't know what it's gonna be used for.
They're using it now. They use it to look for criminals. They have decided they can apply to whatever that 23andMe or Ancestry, whatever, and they can submit the DNA profile they have for the person they're looking for, and then they will get a match back that's a familial match. It's not the real match, but then they can go and use that as to then start looking at that person's family to figure out who it is. And the other thing is, the thing that worries me is, what if I submit my DNA and they discover that I don't have Huntington's disease, but what if I'm a carrier and my children will have it when they become older? And their insurance huh?
All the DNA.
Oh, I know, but that doesn't mean that they don't have it. Just because they don't give it to you doesn't mean they don't have it.
Yeah.
And what happens when your insurance company gets that, or what happens when your kid's insurance company gets that information, which says they're going to have Huntington's disease, and suddenly their insurance policies are written in such a way that they won't cover Huntington's disease. I mean, yes, I'm paranoid. I'm not paranoid about everything, but there are things I'm paranoid about, and some of that kind of thing is. Be careful, huh?
That's real.
Have you done it?
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
In the
when the bad guys come and take you, okay, we're gonna as they're hauling you off, we're gonna be yelling, "I told you so!"
in the international, I saw this on TV. In the international terminal at the Atlanta airport, they now Delta Airlines is testing this facial recognition thing where you just go up and you stick your face in this camera-like deal, and you don't have to have a boarding pass, you don't have to have a ticket, you just,
Yeah, and the federal government's monitoring every one of those, and whether you do that or not. They've got facial recognition software in all of those places that's running all the time with everybody that's on camera, because they're looking for terrorists. I mean, I don't, it's one of those that I really don't mind that myself. I mean, that's your face. You are who you are, and if I haven't done anything wrong, I don't feel, hopefully they're not going to come after me. But if they catch people in there that are terrorists, I'm okay with that. I mean, and especially in an airport, absolutely catch them, right? Catch them. Okay, so they're going to have this mark on the right hand or the forehead. Now I don't understand why the right. It's the right hand. It's not the left hand. On the right hand or on the forehead. This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person. Its number is 666. Mine talks about it. I think we've mentioned before that there are all kinds of things that people have tried to factor into that. Hebrew and Greek both have numeric equivalents of their letters, so that 666 is the sum of the letters of the name, and
of whose name?
They look at different historical people's names to try to figure out who the beast is, and the one that is the most. This one, mine says the one that's most probable is it's Neron, Neron, Caesar, but that's Nero, and so that the people writing this Bible, these are people that believe that it's already happened. And they would say that the mark of the beast, it was referring to Nero.
Well, he was pretty bad.
He was pretty bad, and at the time, and he, that may have been, and it didn't. You didn't have to have a physical mark. That never came about. But they did make it where you had to have Roman coins. you could only do business using Roman currency. And these are coins that laud and talk about the fact that Caesar is a god. I mean, that's a part of it. And so, it does fit to some extent, But I don't think that means that it's only that. I mean, I think that this is something that could be coming in the future at some point. And will it? We don't know, but could it? Yes. So chapter 14. Then I looked, and there was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion. Now, Mount Zion is where?
There's that arrow. That's not arrow. Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Yeah, Mount Zion is actually Jerusalem. That's where Jerusalem is. And with him were 144,000 who had his, I would say, or their name and father's name written on their forehead. 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads, so that they would have the name of the Lamb, which would be Christ, and the name of his father, which would be Yahweh, or any number of different words. I'm not sure which word they talk about. But notice that you get both. I mean, you have the mark of the beast, which is a visible symbol, but you also have the mark of the Lamb and the mark of the Father as visible symbols. And I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters and like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. I don't know how you go from water like rain and loud thunder and harps. And some of you probably got some pretty loud. Did you guys have? How was it? Were you? Well, you're not too far here. You're right here, right? You're not that far outside town. So none of us are from, because like up Whitefield and then further and then north up towards Orem is where it really, in that where there was a tornado that kind of
I
went.
don't know, I think it went over my house because I lost shingles.
Did okay. Well, or there was a lot of straight line wind. There was some high straight line wind. So, but you hear people talk about that when those tornadoes come through, the sound. That's one thing that they talk about. I don't know that I've ever heard them referred to as sounding like a harp. That doesn't sound like a.
Over my house, it sounded like the ocean roaring to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it went right over our house and more.
Oh, and more. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I lived in more at the time. That first F5.
The first one.
Yeah.
And then you moved.
Yeah.
Well, that's one that bothered me is these people that their houses got wiped out and they rebuilt basically back in the same place. And then the next one comes through and I don't know that it destroyed theirs, but every time if you ever hear that a storm is coming, it started down by Lawton and it's coming through Chickasha. If you're in Moore, you need to be out of your house and in the shelter somewhere because it's going to hit you. They come through that. There's a line that comes right up that way.
Had it not veered to the west a little bit, it would have wiped out our house.
Wow.
And we had just sold it.
Oh, you had just sold it.
We had just sold it, but we had to close.
Okay. Yeah, you needed to close. That's right.
You were lucky.
Okay. Now I'm going to back up for a minute. The 144,000. That is an interesting number. And my little footnote down here says that the 144,000 is a symbolic expression for the whole number of the faithful. So those are all the faithful followers of Christ. We know that 144,000 that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, remember, this is written in 90 AD. And in 90, and when Jesus dies in 33. And so this is 57 years roughly after Jesus goes. For them, 144,000, that's a lot of people. I mean, that's a huge number in their world. I mean, you didn't have that many people. I mean, that number wise, that's a lot. There are still groups, though, that claim that that's what it's going to be. That's the ones that are the actual followers of Christ. There will be 144,000. One of those groups that believes that are the Jehovah's Witnesses. And interestingly enough, if they ever come to your door and are talking to you, get them to talking about the 144,000, and then ask if they're one of the 144,000, and ask how many Jehovah's Witnesses there are. Because what they will tell you is that they don't know. They don't know whether they are, from what I understand, that they don't know. And the Jehovah's Witnesses won't keep count of how many there are, because they know that there are more than 144,000 Jehovah's Witnesses in the world, which means that some of the people that are Jehovah's Witnesses who think they're the only ones, some of them aren't going to make it. And especially if you count the ones that have already died. I mean, think about it. So that's a symbolic number. It is not an exact number. Again, but remember, 144, that's 14, right? That's 14 is, and it's 44, 144 is 12 times 12. And so it's 12,000 times 12,000. So theoretically, or 12 times 12,000. 12 times 12,000. So it would mean 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes. In essence, that's what it would be, right? But that's not really. It's all symbolic. It's all symbolic.
And does it not also down the next one say that basically they're all men?
Well, it does. It does seem to make them sound like they're men. Yeah. And I think that I think I would say that John maybe was a little touched in the head. If this is supposed to represent everyone that's followers of Christ, there are a lot of people that are followers of Christ that are not men. I mean, obviously, there's look at any church. Look in the church today. That any church, there's way more women than there are men. But John's his view of the world is pretty kind of a little strange, and so I think that we have to understand that, and they were in a very patriarchal system where women were not women. Jesus fed the 3,000 or the 5,000. Well, and the 3,000 or 5,000 was men, not counting the women and the children, and so that's all they counted. So, I take that with a grain of salt, I would say. Okay, so they get, and we've got the water roaring, and we've got thunder, and this is a voice, right? A voice that sounds like water and thunder and a harp playing. And they sing a new song before the throne, and before the four living creatures, and before the elders. So now suddenly we're seeing when he sees the Lamb on Mount Zion, we're back in that throne room where you've got God and the Lamb with God, right? And you've got all these creatures, and we've got the elders and all that. But they're singing a new song before the throne. No one could learn that song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. These follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Now that doesn't necessarily, the 144,000 here, except the 144,000 who had been redeemed, doesn't necessarily mean that they're the same 144,000. No, I guess it implies that they are, right? So that's really strange. And why does they haven't defiled themselves with women? They are virgins. These follow the Lamb wherever he goes.
It might say they are spiritually undefiled.
Okay, spirit. Okay, I can go with that. That sounds good to me. But you know what something like that becomes, right? If you read that and you take that literally, then if somebody is going to be holy or is going to be someone, especially if it's going to be someone that you're going to have be in charge within the body of Christ, let's say a priest, what does that say you're going to do? What are you going to expect them to do? Right. Isn't that what it, I mean, that's what it, and so this is where you kind of get that idea that, oh, well, our priests are supposed to be like this, right? Well, then they need to be celibate. Well, okay, I don't think you can take this kind of stuff literally. And the fact that they have vows of celibacy for priests, and I mean, I'm not saying that some priests don't live up to those vows, but there are a lot of priests that don't, and there are a lot of priests that don't in bad ways, and they're paying the price for that. And I think that you're a lot better off in the church having ministers who have wives and have families than ones that don't and are tempted by other things. And I don't know, that's my own feeling. That's my own feeling. But they're ones, they have not defiled themselves with women. They're spiritually, we'll say they're spiritually holy and undefiled. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They have been redeemed from humankind as first fruits for God and the Lamb, and in their mouth no lie was found. They are blameless. So these are sort of the pure. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And these are this is mine says that we have sort of an interlude between all the stuff with the beast and then something that's going to come out. We're going to get to the 7 bowls of the wrath of God starting in chapter 15. Okay, let's stop there. So we're going to stop. We're at 14:5. We're going to stop there and we'll pick up with 14:6 next time. And I'm going to go ahead and check this off. Somebody's actually chatting on here. But did it hurt? Spider, I don't know. Somebody, but it says nobody's on. I don't know who. Maybe somebody was. They followed the beast. Wow. Okay. Anyway, I'll end this.
Where are we on Tuesday? I've missed. Yeah.